Alright, so welcome back to the shop. We've got some work to do on our prototype racer. Now, the next step that we need to do is create the A-pillar. We already got essentially somewhat of what the B-pillar would be, our main hoop. So we just need the windshield section, the part that goes in front of your head. So whatever you want to call that, I call it the A-pillar because that's usually what it is in a car. Anyways, we need to get that going, and this is going to be slightly tricky because just creating from absolutely nothing, if you have weird little changes in your bend or your degrees or whatever, it doesn't really matter because that's your first hoop and everything builds off of that. But since this is our second set, we have to mimic to a point what's on the rear hoop. So it's basically, it needs to be 21 inches tall to the first bend. That second bend needs to be about 22 inches further. Then that's about 10 inches, about another 22, then another 21 straight down. So roughly speaking, we're talking 50 inches aside, so about 100 inches. So let's just go out to, let's just call it 105, just to make sure we got that little bit of extra, because I got no problem cutting off 2-3 inches for the dumpster pile versus throwing the whole thing close to it. Anyways, let's get that cut and let's start monkeying around with the bender. All right, so we got our tube cut. We're gonna give it a good clean down because this most recent batch is really nasty from whatever oiling compound or whatever they use in the manufacture of this stuff and for protection. Real nasty. This one's so bad, I think we need another round. So, let's get our center line. Yeah, we're right at 105. So half of that should be what? 52 and a half? Alright, well anyways, this would have been a good spot for that online calculator, but it slightly let me down on the last bend. So it got 3 out of 4, pretty good, but that was kind of a pain to try to get that to work out properly. So, to the trusty calculator. So if we want 10 inches, and where first bend is going to be a 60-degree bend, we have to figure out how far out from the line, because we're going to make the bend towards our line, which isn't the easiest. Usually you'd put your clamp up here and bend it away, but with having a offset of about 6 inches, when you got a 10-inch section, you don't quite got your 6 inches that you have. It's like the first one will be fine, but once your bend starts at this probably 5-inch spot, it starts bending, when you come to do this other one, your 5-inch spot is going to be passed in the bend. So we have to come out here and bend back. Anyways, that's just what we have to do. It's like there's funky ways of doing it with a bend on top of a bend, but I don't like messing with that when I got a straight piece that I can mess around with anyways. So, since we're going to go 60 degrees, our bender extends 0.1 inches per degree. Actually, it's 0.104, so let's get technical. Times 60 degrees. That means the length of the bend will be 6.24 inches, so 6 1/4. So that means, let's double check our measurements here. Yeah, that's about right. The same center line here has about a 5 7/8 offset. So if we want our bend to stop at 5 inches, make sure we get that seam on the correct spot. But if we get that at 5 inches, then we need to add our 6 1/4 and our 5 7/8. So let's come five 7/8 is there. And 6 1/4 puts us right there. So of course I could have added all this together and it would have been fine, but 17 3/8. So let's just make sure we get (17 3/8) out the other side. Ta-da! Anyways, that should be pretty close. So that got a little more interesting than it needed to be. For some reason, when I was bending the bends, all the bends weren't coming out 100% correct. So I don't know if it was a measuring mistake or a minor brain thought going to heck. But anyways, after zapping it in, beating it into place, wedging a couple boards in there to pry it apart, smashing it and jumping up and down on it, we got it in there and it looks close enough. Now unfortunately I was planning on making the top of this a little bit lower than the back, but it ended up a little bit higher than the back. So I decided, what the hey, that might be the highest point on our car, and we'll taper backwards from there. Because you know, gotta make do with what you got. Now it's blazingly hot in here, because it's like 90 something outside. I've already shed as much clothing as I can to be in the shop. So I'm gonna need to throw the fan on in the corner, which is noisy as heck, but that's the only way we're gonna get some of these other tubes shoved in there. So I'm going to hit the 2 top tubes that we plan on having in it and see how much time we got left and to see if I die of a heat stroke before then. So I'm gonna crank on that fan, get cutting, and see where I end up. All right, well, we got the roof bars mostly welded in. They're not welded on the underside, of course, but we got them zapped in. We've got some gussets in the back to help strengthen it a little bit more. We'll probably do the same up front, but we will do that when I blow everything apart to finish welding. But it is time for a break since it's super hot out here. But when we come back, I'm gonna get these bars in across here, and then I will get the fun task of seeing whether I can get in and out through the side or if I'm gonna have to come in and out through the front. That'll be a real interesting point to try to figure out. So after a quick break, I'll get these bars going and we'll see where we're at. So as you can see, I had a little bit of extra time, so I put in a couple extra bars there. That should be our kind of top line. And then I'm kind of thinking, you can see with this rod right here, using that as kind of a frame for the windshield cockpit thing to fit over. So hypothetically, we could go part of the way up with like sheet metal, carbon fiber, fiberglass, whatever we decide on, and then the rest can be Lexan. That way we can just get a sheet of Lexan, heat it up where the rods are, and bend it over the rod. But I guess I did promise to see if I'll fit in through the door hole. So let's give that a go. So I mean, hypothetically, I should be able to have these as stepping points. And in we go. So that should work halfway decent. These bars, I think I want to have this bar right about there. That opens up my line of sight here. I will have like this pillar that's going to be like a little bit blocking, but it shouldn't be too bad because we got nothing else in front of us. So we'll get that there. We'll have steering wheel here. Steering wheel will barely fit into the cockpit. I think that should be good enough. So I guess that's gonna do it for today. Kind of made some good progress here. I'm gonna have to, probably off camera, get a few more bars to anchor down these forward running posts and probably start trussing these things in, which you probably don't need to be hanging around for that. Anyways, thanks for stopping by and watching. We'll see you again later.